What's up everyone and welcome back to the MMA Zone. Today, let's get started with Khamzat Chimaev reacts to being removed from pound-for-pound rankings. Khamzat Chimaev isn't currently included in the top 15 of the UFC's pound-for-pound rankings, but as it turns out, Boris was featured in those rankings for Russia. Well, until recently. What happened? And before we continue, make sure to leave a like on the video to help support the channel. Even if you're a casual fan, you likely know that Chimaev hasn't lost recently. He's never lost a pro MMA fight. On account of his 14-0 record, it's not surprising to learn that the Chechenian-born fighter was ranked in Russia's pound-for-pound rankings. Well, recently, Chimaev announced that he has received citizenship in the United Arab Emirates, and now it's being reported that the middleweight has been dropped from Russia's pound-for-pound ranks. When asked by a reporter recently about that fact, Chimaev seemed to shrug it off. The reporter asked, "In terms of your skills, there's no doubt, but the question is if you should be there as a representative of Russia, and if you personally want to be there." To which Chimaev responded, "What should I say? Let them include me in the rankings if they like. If they don't, well, I don't know who decides, but I represent both Russia and the UAE." Some may argue that it seems silly Chimaev was dropped from the rankings on account of becoming a UAE citizen. But regulations around who's eligible for those rankings aside, there's no doubt that as far as Russian-born fighters, Chimaev is up there. If you're wondering if Chimaev is in the top 15 of the UFC's pound-for-pound rankings, the answer is no. If he does end up fighting Dricus du Plessis next, and if he beats him, that'll change real quick. DDP is currently ranked number 6. Joaquin Buckley responds to Kevin Holland's comments. A lot has happened since Kevin Holland took out Joaquin Buckley back in 2020, and so the latter is taking issue with Holland's contention that he would beat him again. Holland and Buckley battled back in August of that year, and Holland finished the fight in round 3. Since then, Holland has pretty much lost as many fights as he's won, while Buckley has been establishing himself as a legit welterweight contender by going 11-3. Currently, the explosive fighter is riding a 6-fight winning streak, but despite Buckley's awe-inspiring run, Holland still believes that he'd beat Buckley again. During a recent appearance on the Jackson podcast, the Trailblazer acknowledged Buckley has a ton of momentum behind him, but he made the following claim: "It would always go the same way. I know so. Styles makes fights. And don't forget, at the end of the day, he wants to be the champ. He wants to be on top of the world. I'm already living on top of my world. I'm good." Well, when Buckley was asked to respond to Holland's comments during a recent episode of Perry Punch, not surprisingly, he fired back at the veteran fighter.
And see what he said right there, and that's the reason why I right now in the cage, because he not hungry no more. Even though Styles made fights, it's just like at the end of the day, like, it's, do you want it though? Who wanted more? And don't ever forget, when we fought each other, not only was it short notice, but bro, I did not have not one teammate with me, not one coach, not a gym, right? I was able to go 3 rounds with that dude at that time. And then you see how my career has also progressed, in that time, right? For me, because I want to be champ, because I want to make all this money, I'm going to always work at a certain level that a lot of fighters can't be able to keep up with.
Now, Holland boosters would argue that he's been competing at middleweight, and that maybe Holland would not have taken as many losses if he'd been focused on 170. But even if that was the case, there's no denying that Buckley could be one pivotal victory away from securing a title shot. Holland, meanwhile, is 1-4 in his last 5 fights, and is no longer a top 15 ranked fighter. Anthony Smith reacts to Rampage Jackson's situation. Rampage Jackson never crossed paths with Anthony Smith in the cage during his lengthy MMA career, but it sounds like there could be some serious issues if he runs into Smith on the street. Recently, Smith let it be known he didn't care for TJ Dillashaw taking verbal jabs at him when he appeared on the Jackson podcast that Jackson hosts. Via his own podcast, here was some of what Smith had to say according to MMA Fighting. "You bring fighters on, you on them, it happened to me," Smith said. "You brought me on, you're super cool to me, I had a good time, I love Rampage, he's my favorite fighter, I've said that for years. You heard me say that 100 times. Rampage is my favorite fighter. You bring me on, I have an amazing time, and several months later, you're on there with Dillashaw making fun of me. That's what they do, that's their thing. Honestly, it's less Rampage, he's just kind of the funny haha guy. He just laughs about stuff." Even though Smith's comments were really more directed at Dillashaw, the comments clearly riled up Jackson. In a subsequent episode of the Jackson podcast, the outspoken fighter proceeded to light up Smith. Here was some of what he had to say. "I saw this post that Anthony Smith did. I saw it this morning. Pissed me off when TJ sat right here and said you'll never be champion and said that you gave up. Bear and I had your back, and that's why we were saying Lionheart with a nickname like Lionheart, not Lying Heart. And you took it as Bear and I were making fun of you. Bear and I actually liked your but now you're because at first I didn't say because I DM'd you, I looked at it, I could see how could think that I was making fun of him too, so I DM'd you. I said to you in the DM, look here, I wasn't making fun of you because I could have made fun of you. Fighters, we make fun of each other. Yeah, I'm a comedian pretending to be a fighter, but the problem is I really can fight. I hope I come down when I see you because like you get smacked for real. Yikes. Now, not surprisingly, Jackson's fiery response got back to Smith, and Lionheart believes the ramp-up intentions is all due to a misunderstanding. Here's some of what he noted in his reaction. "I love Rampage, even though he said he's gonna slap the out of me. I was shocked. I knew there was a chance that Dillashaw was gonna be which I don't care about, and I knew Bear was gonna be probably, but I don't think for a second Rampage would be upset. Chances are cooler heads will prevail here, but what do you think?" Henry Cejudo planning on fighting Merab Dvalishvili for UFC title. Although Henry Cejudo recently turned 38 years old and has yet to win a fight since ending his retirement, Triple C has not abandoned his goal of winning another title. Cejudo is preparing to fight bantamweight contender Song Yadong in the headliner of UFC Seattle, which will go down on February 22nd. The bout will be Cejudo's third since he came out of retirement in 2023. Since then, the decorated wrestler has dropped fights to Aljamain Sterling and current champion Merab Dvalishvili. Well, while talking to MMA Fighting recently, Cejudo made it clear he's not just competing for a check. The former bantamweight and flyweight champ still believes he can hoist the belt one more time. 100% going for the title, that's what it's always about. If it wasn't about that, for sure I wouldn't be fighting. This is the last run. I'm making this last push, this last hurrah over here, and I just turned 38. Age is not a factor in it either, it's my performances. Am I able to display my art inside the octagon in front of 25,000 people? That's where it gets real for me. Now sure, if Cejudo does defeat Yadong, it'll demonstrate he remains a force at 135. But you would think as long as Merab holds the belt, Cejudo's path to another title fight will be a long one. Merab recently told Southern Cross Combat that he's targeting April or June for his next bout, and that Peter Yan or Sean O'Malley are potential opponents in his mind. So the chances of Cejudo competing for the title in 2025 are looking pretty slim at this point, and that's if he beats Yadong. You would also think Umar Nurmagomedov will remain ahead of Cejudo in the title shot race, if he gets back on track, following his close loss to Merab in January. But what do you think? UFC updates. Okay, now let's turn to some news around fight announcements. Recently, Paddy Pimblett prompted widespread buzz that he'll be competing at the UFC's upcoming card in Miami, Florida. And it looks like the baddie has confirmed that will be the case. Several days ago, Pimblett reported via a video for his YouTube channel that he was preparing for a fight that's gonna be 10 weeks out. Since UFC 314 is going down in April 12th in Miami, talk that the Liverpool fighter is heading to Florida began to make the rounds. Well, more recently, the baddie shared out this post via social media. "Can't wait to put on a show for a crowd again soon." Because the post included the palm tree emoji, many view this as another big signal that Pimblett is fighting at UFC 314. In fact, Michael Chandler also recently posted a palm tree emoji via social media, kicking the rumor mill into high gear about the possibility that he's going to be fighting Pimblett at UFC 314. As this video is being produced, however, no official announcement for that matchup has been made. It's being reported by several outlets that Santiago Ponzinibbio and Daniel Rodriguez are going to throw hands on May 3rd. The UFC is rumored to be heading to Des Moines, Iowa for a card on that date. Now, if you've ever seen Ponzinibbio or Rodriguez fight, and there's a very good chance you have, you know that the chances of this bout not being good are slim to none. Ponzinibbio recently showed the MMA world that he is far from washed by taking out Carlston Harris in round 3. The veteran contender has gone 2-3 in his last 5 fights. Rodriguez, meanwhile, ended a 3-fight losing streak in October by recording a split decision victory over Alex Morono. And the new Global Fight League continues to announce fights for the company's inaugural season, as former UFC contender Uriah Hall is going to battle former Bellator champion Douglas Lima. The date for the bout has yet to be announced, but the new team-based league is expected to start holding cards in April. Hall hasn't fought in MMA since 2022, when the highlight reel striker dropped a decision loss to Andre Muniz. The middleweight is 2-3 in his last 5 fights. Lima, on the other hand, is coming off a decision loss to Aaron Jeffrey in September. The hard-hitting fighter and former welterweight is 1-4 in his last 5 contests. MMA community goes off on UFC competitor for Fight. The Global Fight League has been announcing matchups for the company's inaugural season, which is expected to get underway in April. If you've been following the GFL so far, you know that the team-based league has signed a lot of aging former UFC stars. One of the initial fights featuring 2 + 40 old fighters was recently announced, and well, it didn't go over too well with the MMA world. As you can see, recently, the GFL announced that 47-year-old Yoel Romero will take on the 43-year-old Shogun Hua when the promotion's season gets underway. Here were just some of the fiery reactions the announcement prompted. "Seeing this actually made me physically ill. Have some shame. We will pay off your debts, Shogun. You don't need to do this. Is there anyone under 50 on this card? This is just wrong. You guys should be put in jail for this, lol. And who's the matchmaker for F's sake? Please tell me this is submission grappling and not MMA. Are you interested in seeing Shogun Rua battle Romero? Even though both men are way past their primes, it's worth noting that Romero did record a victory over Thiago Santos last year, while Rua hasn't won a fight since 2020. Since the GFL was announced, it's received mixed reactions at best. Many have opined that the league will not last long, but GFL founder and commissioner Darren Owen maintains the league has a solid business plan. While appearing on the Fighter and the Kid podcast, he proceeded to claim the PFL has returned zero money to any of its investors. I know people who are the first investors in that entity. They haven't received a dollar back from their investment. Owen also reported on the show that the GFL is planning to hold in Los Angeles in April. Are you willing to give the GFL a chance? And are you excited to see the GFL season begin? Francis Ngannou says Dana White is a massive obstacle for Jon Jones' super fight. Although Francis Ngannou has not fought under the UFC banner since 2022, the way Ngannou sees it, however, the long-discussed fight is still a possibility, provided Dana White isn't involved. If you've been following MMA for several years, you'll recall that at one point, White claimed Jones wanted nothing to do with Ngannou, but after a contract squabble between the UFC and Ngannou erupted, White eventually claimed the Predator deliberately priced himself out of the All-Star fight. Well, fast forward to today, and Ngannou is collecting some big checks while boxing, and he's also the PFL Super Fight Heavyweight Champ. But while talking to Sportsbook Review recently, the feared slugger was once again asked about fighting Jones. I think it's something that could potentially happen. If you can get past Dana White, it could happen. But that's a massive obstacle. But personally, I don't care. I'm doing well. I'm doing my stuff at my pace. I don't care. That won't change my sleep for me. Of course, many fans would skip their cousin's wedding to see Ngannou and Jones fight. The chances of it happening, though, at this stage, seem slim to none. White continues to control the UFC, and he's publicly stated he'll never work with Ngannou again. In terms of Ngannou's next fight, he also told Sportsbook Review that he's targeting a return to the boxing ring. I will do boxing next. I want to. I'm not done with boxing. It's not the MMA is easy. It's the sport that I understand better and I have more experience in, but I say go for boxing. Ngannou also repeated his interest in boxing Deontay Wilder. Would you want to see two of the hardest punchers in the universe throw down? The MMA community is concerned for Jon Jones after he went on Instagram Live last night around 2 to 3 a.m. with 12,000 people watching and said this shocking comment. You go on a trip and get off, disappointed, and as a dad, you just want to. Here's the concerning clip.
On a trip, you get off, disappointed. And as a dad, you just want to.
As you guys saw, he was slurring his words towards the end. Given Jon's past struggles with addiction and the issues he's had, fans are concerned for him. Here's what the community had to say. Time and time again, Jon lets us into who he is. On one side, this video could simply be a frustrated father speaking his frustrations out loud. But Jon's unpredictability, in addition to his past, proves that there are warning signs, and this is it. Mental health is so interesting, man. Guy is 300-0, has a beautiful family, all the money, 2 brothers in the NFL, and still tweaks every other month. Some unhealed trauma or underdeveloped damaged part of his brain for sure. He sounds wasted. Pretty odd if you ask me. Doesn't help his case as well for the guy he is. I frequently use Jon as an example of people who just can't handle alcohol. The moment it hits their lips, they turn into a different person, and it's just the way they are. You just hope that they wake up one day and realize it before it ruins their life. Can we get a wellness check on the family? At least he's not drunk driving like before. Baby steps. He's actually a really bad person. What are your guys' thoughts on the situation? Let us know down in the comment section below.